everyone. So today I wanted to talk about something that I see all over the place, just about every single site I go to that involves programming that has some kind of forum or discussion or comment section or just any kind of user interaction. How do I get started with programming? This is a little bit of a baited question because you can get started with programming pretty much any way you want to. If you want to go to college and study computer science to get a theoretical kind of view on computers and programming and software development, all those types of things, you can do that. If you want to take a more technical applied approach, you could look into coding boot camps or coding schools like Lambda. And then there's a lot of people going just self-taught where they're learning the things they need or want to know. Sorry, my cat has jumped up on my desk. But anyway, so there's lots of routes you can take. But how do you learn what you want to know with programming, regardless of how you go about it, whatever route you take? How do you pick that? Well, the easiest way to do that would be to go from a backwards approach, and this is something that's very common, at least in my experience and my workflow when it comes to software and computers, is you want to set a goal. It's really easy to say that, I want to go program. I want to be a coder. I want to be a programmer. I want to be a developer. But those terms are incredibly generic. And it's to the point that I didn't even realize how generic they were until I got into this field. So you want to try to be more specific, but you don't necessarily have to have an idea of what to build. You don't have to be that specific. You don't have to say, I want to build YouTube 2.0. You don't have to necessarily be that specific, but you could say, I want to build something like YouTube or, something like Facebook. It doesn't necessarily have to have any kind of real name, just some kind of technology that you like or that you use or you'd like to develop. And then what you do, for example, is let's say I want to make YouTube. I would then realize that I need to be a web application developer. If I wanted to do the full range of what it would take to develop something like YouTube, I would need to be a full stack developer. So how do I become a full stack developer then becomes the problem instead of how do I become a programmer. Well, you look into what a full stack developer is, which is basically a developer that knows how to do front end development and back end development. Okay, from there you would say, well, design interests me more than coding logic, so I want to start with front end development. Or you could be the other way around, which is kind of me, even though I'm not taking my advice here. I'm much more logically inclined as far as versus design, but I did learn front end first. But anyway, so you would say I want to do design or logic first, basically is how you could break that down. And then from there you can learn, we'll go with design. So design is the front end. That's, front end developer. So now that's your goal. Your goal is no longer to be a programmer. It's no longer to be a full stack developer. It's to be a front end developer. And then what you do there is, what does a front end developer do? Well, they develop the front end using certain technologies such as HTML, CSS, JavaScript, different frameworks like React or Angular or Vue. So you would kind of go through, you look at these different things that front end developers use. And you'll see two kind of categories, which is the core and the accessory. Frameworks and libraries fall into the accessory one. But if you're starting out from the beginning, you don't even need to worry about those. What you want to look at first is you're gonna write down a list. Write down a list that every front end developer knows, and then write down a list of things that some front end developers know, and others know something different in place of that. The one that they all know, that's where you want to start. That's basically for front end development. It's going to be HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. That's going to be your starting point. Once you've got that down, what you're going to want to do is then look at your list of things that different developers know from other developers. So we'll go back to the React, Angular, and Vue kind of comparison there. You'll sit down, you'll look at those different technologies. I would recommend actually trying them all out. But you could easily just pick one to just stick with forever. But definitely when you get started, look at them all, kind of get a feel for them, and then pick one to learn. Once you've got that one learned, the other ones come a little bit easier, and then you can see how you've worked backwards from I want to be a programmer to I need to know HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And this kind of method can apply for anything, because you can say, well, I want to create artificial intelligence. What kind of artificial intelligence do you want to create? Do you want to work with computer vision? Do you want to work with natural language processing, object detection, classification, chatbots, all these different types of things? And then you can basically break that same kind of system down. It's like, well, if I'm going to work with, let's say, deep learning, well, what do deep learning engineers know? They typically know the same type of thing. They know certain programming language, usually something like Python, and then they know frameworks. I know TensorFlow is a really popular one. I believe PyTorch is another one. I don't know if that's specifically deep learning or not. I don't do a lot of deep learning. I stick more to machine learning. But with that, you can see the same process that you go from I want to be an artificial intelligence developer to I want to be a natural language processing developer to I need to learn this language and this framework. And it's the same thing. You can make a list of things that all these AI engineers know versus what some know and others don't. And then you can kind of see what the core and the accessory skills and technologies are. And that's basically my recommendation on getting started with programming, is figure out what you want to build. And once you know what you want to build, then it's really easy just to figure out your own path from there. Because if you just say, well, I want to start programming, but I'm a great example. I'm relatively lenient. I like computers and I like to code, so I wasn't terribly picky about what I built. And because of that, I spent easily 3 months not necessarily wasting my time, but being very inefficient with my time because of how unorganized I was in my learning. It's why I do know a little bit of machine learning. Well, I know, a little bit of back-end development, a little bit of front-end development, a little bit of game development even. I tried all these little different things out before being like, hey, I really need to focus on something to get a job, and then all these other things that I want to learn, like game development, something I don't see myself having like a full-time career in, I can teach myself that later. Because side projects are always going to be a thing you want to do regardless. So if there's something that you want to do as a career, I would say start there, master that, and then everything you learn to get that job will make learning stuff for your side projects easier. Everything in programming is connected. A lot of principles apply across languages, across frameworks, even across disciplines, between data science and web development. Regardless of which one of those you do, knowing how to do a for loop or if-else conditionals or any of those things will just be natural. Because by the time for example, by the time I'm a full-stack engineer, if I go into data science just a year after that even, it's going to be really easy for me to switch over because I understand programming. And from there, the languages get really easy to learn. So stick with one that fits your goal, where you want to go, and how you want to do it, and just go from there. Because like you can find a boot camp specifically for a certain path, and then you're always supplement whatever route you take with self-teaching, because it requires practice and repetition to really get these things down. I literally would write code that I was reading. Like I would find a tutorial, or I would just copy out of one of my textbooks, and I would just write it over and over and over, and for a long time it didn't make sense to me. Because, like I said in one of my other videos, I actually started coding about, it was 3-4 years ago. Did not take it seriously at all. It was just a little fun thing that it's like, hey, I can code a little bit. But when I started looking at it from a career perspective, I kind of changed, I cracked down, and then after redoing it, I've made probably 5 static web pages, and after that point, I can definitely tell you I get HTML, I get CSS, I get JavaScript, I get these things because I've just done them to the point that I see it and I can read it. It's just like a language. And because I know a little bit of French, I never took it as seriously. I feel like if I'd taken the same approach to French as I did coding, I could probably just switch right now and be bilingual. But I didn't, so I'm not. I think this backwards first approach, and like I say, it works really well across multiple things, even if you're like developing a specific application. It's like if I want to make a chatbot, go look and see how other people made a chatbot. What technologies did they use? How did they use them? And just start learning that process from the end goal. Because if you go the other way, you're not going to really know what to do. Lots of begin coding type videos or tutorials or guides, and even some of mine are going to be kind of really general. It's like, this is how this works, but this isn't how you necessarily build what you want to build. A lot of times you have to take the knowledge of how something works and then experiment yourself to see how to get the results that you want to get. But don't be afraid to try, don't be afraid to fail, and just keep doing it. Just keep doing it and keep doing it. And eventually you'll get to that goal. It's just a time-intensive thing. It may not necessarily take you a long time. Some people probably pick it up quicker than others. That's for sure. I definitely feel like there's people probably been coding 3 months who are way better than me. But that's neither here nor there. The point is if they've taken in those 3 months and really dedicated to it and really spent the time grinding over it, sitting at the computer for hours, writing code, and by writing code, I'm typically mean debugging code. Even if it's your own code, you're going to get to that point when you're beginning that it's not doing what you want it to do. It's not compiling. It's just not. And that's probably one of the most important skills you're going to learn as you learn to code is, how do I fix this problem? I had a solution. I thought it would work. It didn't. How do I fix this without having to start from scratch? But I hope this video kind of gives you an idea of how to get started. It doesn't necessarily matter the language. It doesn't necessarily matter the education style, whether that's self-taught, college, all those things. None of that super matters, because you can cater this to you. You can fit this to what you want to build, and that'll tell you what technologies you need to learn. And then you can just analyze yourself. How do I learn? Am I a visual learner? Am I a let me do it kind of learner? And you can cater your education to that. So find what works for you, I guess, is kind of the takeaway from this video. And just do it, or just refine your goal. You want it to be a nice balance. Like I said, you don't want it to be too general of just being a programmer, because that encompasses literally thousands of different types of jobs. And then you don't want to be super specific to the point of, I want to make this one application. It's I want to make applications like this, I want to make streaming services. I want to make social media websites. I want to make forums. I want to make landing pages. I want to make e-commerce sites. And then from there, you can learn those skills, like I said, and then just keep redoing it. And it'll keep redoing it in a different way. And it'll just build up your experience, your templates, and really get a good handle on the scope of the languages you're using. But thank you all for watching. Like I said, I really hope this helps out a little bit. If you have any extra questions or anything, always feel free to leave me a comment, shoot me a message, get a hold of me any way that you know how. I'm just here to help. I'm learning too. Like I said, that's my goal for this, is for us to learn together, and I hope we can do that. We'll help each other out, we'll grow, and we'll become the best damn developers that we can, right? So until next time, I will see you then.